Senator Clinton, Senator Obama has said that he favors allowing illegal immigrants to obtain driver's licenses, and you opposed that idea. Why?
Well, let me start with the original question from Kim, because I think it deserves an answer. I believe that in many parts of our country, because of employers who exploit undocumented workers and drive down wages, there are job losses. And I think we should be honest about that. There are people who have been pushed out of jobs in factories and meat processing plants and all kinds of settings. And I meet them. You know, I was in Atlanta last night, and an African-American man said to me, I used to have a lot of construction jobs, and now it just seems like the only people who get them anymore are people who are here without documentation. So I know that what we have to do is to bring our country together to have a comprehensive immigration reform solution. That is the answer. And it is important that we make clear to Kim and people who are worried about this that that is actually in the best interests of those who are concerned about losing their jobs or already have.
What's going on, everybody? Thank you all for joining me today. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel, and most importantly, please make sure that you are following me on Telegram at CD Media Group to help circumvent social media censorship and shadow banning. With the introduction out of the way, let's get into today's news. And today, there was a massive ICE raid in North Carolina that took place about a day ago. I want to take a moment to go into this and break this down just a little bit, because I think it's really important to share this kind of information out and make sure this stuff just gets out there to the best that we can get it out there, because this is just wrong what we see going on here as it pertains to American citizens being undercut by illegal immigrants, right? When you have willing and able-bodied American citizens that can't find work, but yet you have facilities like what we're getting ready to discuss today that apparently, allegedly, are stealing the identity of Americans in order for illegal immigrants to work. That's just wrong, right? None of us will want our identity stolen so that somebody else could work, right? So let's jump into this right now. I want to read a few paragraphs from this article first, very quickly, and then we're going to dissect a few news videos, right, that came out concerning the same situation down in North Carolina. But let's get into this article first. ICE raid at Kings Mountain factory stemmed from identity theft investigation. Workers taken into custody. Let's break this down just a little bit. The article goes on to read, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officials said a raid on a King Mountain factory Wednesday afternoon was part of an investigation into identity theft. That blitz involved ICE agents taking workers at Buckeye Fire Equipment into custody. Eric Pinion shot video, and he said his co-workers gathered into one spot at Buckeye Fire. In the video, men in large vests and badges are seen standing behind the workers. Can we pause there for a moment? This is coming from The Hill, another article from The Hill. I just find it amazing that whenever you come across any type of news concerning ICE, whether we're talking about deportations, arrests and operations and investigations like this, they refuse to refer to them and call them who they are, federal agents. They refuse to say ICE agents. They refuse to say DHS. They refuse to say Homeland Security. They always refer to them as these just kind of generic individuals in mask, right? Men in mask. Look at this. Men in large vests and badges are seen standing behind the workers. What men in large vests and badges? You mean federal agents, right? You mean ICE agents, right? You mean DHS agents, right? They refuse to identify them as who they actually are. This is a means of actually dehumanizing them. And that creates a situation in which when these guys show up, this is why ICE agents have seen a 500% increase in violence towards them. Because when you have the media apparatus who continuously rips their authority away by just referring to these guys as, men with masks. We watched the video clip the other day. I believe it was the illegal immigrant that was waving around the weed whacker trying to hit ICE agents. In that news clip, they were referring to those ICE agents, not as ICE agents, not as federal agents, but as 200-pound men. When you strip that authority away from them, that then opens up the door for people to look at them as just kidnappers, to which now they're going to fight back against you. right? They're going to fight back against federal agents. Once again, that's why the uptick, we're talking about 500%, there's been a 500% increase in violence against ICE agents. It's because of nonsense like this. Men in large vests and badges are seen standing behind workers. That's completely ridiculous. Anyways, I digress. Let's carry on. The article continues to read. He was able to grab this video before any agents stepped in to stop him. You see how they knew that they were agents? Pinion, a U.S. citizen, said once everyone's phones were turned off, what appeared to be immigration agents led them to a small room for at least an hour before individual interrogations outside. Pinion chose not to answer any questions. Agents handed out blue wristbands to indicate who had legal citizenship. And as we bring this article to a close, ICE spokesperson Lindsey Williams said agents were executing a warrant for aggravated identity theft and other crimes, which included potentially employing people illegally. So now what I want to do next is that I want to get into this first news clip surrounding this situation here, because I want us to listen to what some of the people on the ground had to say, right? Some of the workers there. And of course, as always, there were goofy people protesting, waving foreign flags, outside of this company that's clearly employing illegal immigrants. In my opinion, I assume, right? That wasn't technically 100% confirmed, but it's obvious as we listen to this video what happened. So let's get into this here. I want us to listen to what some of these lunatics have to say. So I'm going to dive into this video next.
Tonight, we're hearing from people that were held inside of a local business for hours as ICE says it executed a search warrant on the property.
This is an update to that breaking news that we had for you this afternoon. ICE telling us roughly a dozen people are in custody tonight after that operation at Buckeye Fire Equipment Company in Kings Mountain.
WCNC Charlotte Siobhan Riley was there and found out more about the investigation.
ICE says about 300 people work at the business. This is an investigation they said they are taking very seriously. I talked with folks who waited for hours for their loved ones to be released.
Shame on ICE! Shame on you!
Dozens of protesters stood outside at Buckeye Fire Equipment Company in Kings Mountain Wednesday afternoon after ICE executed a criminal search warrant at the company.
There go the foreign flags. Shame on ICE, shame it why for doing their job, for making sure American workers are protected and that they're not being undercut by illegal immigrants. Shame on them for what? For enforcing the law and taking care of the American citizens, the taxpayers. Shame on them for that. As once again, you're waving foreign flags, being anti-American. Anyways, man, I'll rewind it back just a little bit. Let's carry on. I really despise this stuff. I really do.
Afternoon after ICE executed a criminal search warrant at the company. Josephine Bierstrom, who works at the business, says she and her colleagues were stuck inside since about 1:00 p.m. and investigators made employees give up their personal items, including their cell phones.
They made us all take everything out of our pockets. They patted us down. They searched us. They made us put all of our personals in a plastic bag. They taped the bag shut and wouldn't let us get to our personal belongings.
Lindsey Williams, an ICE spokesperson, said the operation was linked to claims of identity theft.
So potentially, these are allegations that the employer or somebody in their charge used fraudulent documents or incorrect documents to allow people who aren't authorized to work in this country to work.
Shout out to whoever snitched at work there, because that's what it sounds like happened based off what he was saying. He didn't give too many details on how they found out about that, but really the only way you can find out about that if there's an employee on the inside that tipped ICE off and said, hey man, this is what's going on over here. They're employing illegal immigrants. How they're doing this, I don't know, because obviously that's against the law. And they're down there in North Carolina, and North Carolina is a swing state. So I would believe to some degree it's not as easy to get away with hiring illegal immigrants the way that it's easy to do here in a place like Los Angeles. But just nonetheless, shout out to whoever works there that snitched, because he's protecting the American worker, or he or she is protecting the American worker, as they should be. So let's let the video carry on.
Where's my cousin?
Julia Perez is one of many protesters advocating for her cousin who was inside the building.
People have human rights. Those rights are being violated left and right.
Perez says her cousin called to say they were told to turn off their cell phones. That's the last she heard from her family member.
My biggest fear is my family being ripped apart. The community here supports the Hispanic community.
During the time...
Sorry, yeah, I'm pausing it again. No one's human rights or civil rights or anything of that nature is being violated. This is essentially a criminal investigation, a federal investigation that's happening right now. Everyone is temporarily detained until we can sort things out. So yeah, we're going to need your cell phones, cut them off, put it away, put all your belongings in this plastic bag with your name on it. We're going to set it to the side. And once we're done with each individual conversation that we're going to have with you in the midst of an investigation in which everybody here is detained, then you can get your belongings back, essentially, if you're an American citizen, right? Because then you're free to go. But if not, well, then your belongings stay with us and you stay with us as well as we take you away. There's literally nothing here that's happening that's illegal. No human or civil rights is being violated. DNC lunatics on MSDNC and CNN are making people completely and utterly stupid, where they're just saying nonsense because they think it sounds good. Their human and civil rights are being violated. No, it's called everyone is detained while we are conducting an investigation. That's what it's called. Anyways, let's carry on. And more foreign flags, as you can see. I'll rewind it back just a little bit. More foreign flags. Nobody's proud to be an American.
Perez says her cousin called to say they were told to turn off their cell phones. That's the last she heard from her family member.
My biggest fear is my family being ripped apart. The community here supports the Hispanic community.
During the time we spoke with ICE, some employees were still inside while others were cleared to leave. Employees who were able to leave were escorted by officers and asked more questions.
They asked to see our ID, they asked for our birth date, where we were born, and asked us questions about whether we know about any illegals working at Buckeye or any illegals using somebody else's social security number.
Siobhan Riley, WCNC Charlotte.
People have rights.
Now, we're told the number of people detained could increase. Williams says it is still unknown if anyone with the company will face charges.
And that's the issue. If the company doesn't face charges, then this stuff never stops. Because the biggest problem is that these companies continuously violate the law by hiring illegal immigrants. And in this particular case here, through identity theft, in my opinion, knowingly. But, you know, they'll detain illegal immigrants that work there and most likely deport them, especially because we're now under Trump. But the companies never pay a consequence. There needs to be consequences for these companies. They need to pay a price. You know, they really need to pay a price. If they don't, then, you know, and precedent isn't set that you will get hit with a very stiff fine. If you do it again, if you violate it for a second time, it's going to be 10 times worse. If this stuff isn't implemented, then there's no way to bring this to an end. There's no way to bring this to an end and protect the American worker. Now, what I want to do next is that I want to take a moment to play a little bit of the press conference concerning, I believe his name is Lindsey Williams, right? The ICE spokesperson down there in North Carolina, in North Carolina. So let's get into that clip next.
Partners conducted a federal search warrant here at Buckeye Fire Equipment in Kings Mountain. The search warrant was related to allegations of identity theft and possible other federal crimes.
Can you talk to me about the allegation? Because it sounds like the company itself may have been involved in the ID theft. What can you tell us about the allegations?
Right. So again, they're allegations. So I don't want to get ahead of any of the investigation or any litigation, but I can tell you that it's related to identity theft. So potentially they could use stolen or incorrect identities to employ people who aren't allowed to be employed, potentially.
Will anybody with the company face charges?
It's yet to be determined. It's still early in the investigation. We'll see.
Can you just kind of refresh for us and make sure that we understand exactly why you're here, what brought you here, and the concerns you have here?
Sure. Again, I can't give out too many details because it's an open investigation and we haven't got to the prosecution stage and all that sort of stuff. I can tell you, allegations of identity theft you should take seriously. Would you want your identities used for someone else to work or do whatever they're going to do with them? So it's a serious federal crime.
I mean, that says it all right there. Would you want your identity stolen so that someone else could be working a job that they're not supposed to be working, that's been taken away from an American citizen? Is that what you'd want? Right. So they're shutting that stuff down. They're shutting it down over there. And that's a good thing. That's actually a great thing. It's a phenomenal thing. Because once again, I refuse to bow down to the myth and the lie that these are jobs that American citizens don't want to work. That's just BS. And I'm gonna, as a matter of fact, I didn't have this queued up, and I was debating whether or not to play this. I wasn't going to play it anymore, but I'm going to play it now. I don't know how many of you guys remember that, but this is a classic news clip that just puts that narrative to bed, right? The lazy American that doesn't want to work, you know? Look at this news clip here in closing. Check this out.
And a week after the raids, one of the poultry companies involved held a job fair.
WJTV 12's Shay O'Connor reports from Koch Foods in Scott County.
Bright and early Monday morning, dozens of people turned out at Cook Foods employment centers in Martin and the Wynn Job Center in Forest are looking for a job.
I heard that, they were hiring, so I came down here to see if they needed somebody to drive one of the trucks for them, and me and my cousins, we came up here to see if they were hiring anywhere else in the warehouse.
The influx in job openings comes nearly a week after 680 undocumented workers were detained in ICE raids at food plants across the state. In the town of Martin alone, 243 people were taken from food plants, Cook Foods being where the highest numbers of workers were detained. Organizers with Wynn Job Center in Forest say they were contacted by the food company last week to conduct the fair.
They have to continue with business as usual. When they continue with business as usual, that means that they have to have enough people in order to process the poultry. And if they don't have that, then of course the lines are going to go down and they're not going to be able to be as productive as they should.
Cook Foods has at least 3 locations within the Morton area. Many who live in or near the small town say the plant doesn't hire much. Vermandez Davis says he is still shaken up by the raids, but says the job openings provide an opportunity for many.
I'm praying for the families of the people that got detained for the situation that happened, but I feel bad for everything, but it just opened up more doors for other people that couldn't get anything done.
They removed the illegals weren't supposed to be there, and next thing you know, they found themselves filled with American citizens coming into their establishment looking for work. I rest my case, man. I rest my case. It is such a ridiculous argument. It's a nonsensical argument. And I'll say one more time in closing, whoever that was over in North Carolina that snitched, good on you. Good on you. And with all that being said, that does it for today's news. So I want to thank you guys for joining me today. Please hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. Share this video on your social media platforms. And also, please do not forget to follow me on Telegram at TD Media Group. The link to my Telegram is in the description box below and pinned in the comment section as well. Thank you all.